Hi, I'm working on building a specimen collection of local fish, and I am out on the stream today, catching fish in this little area that I've removed all of the ice from. So I've actually had an insane journey of ice removal here in order to make it so that catching fish was possible. And I figured I'd bring you guys along on the journey of how to catch a fish, how to preserve it, how to have a jar specimen forever. So today I'm targeting a species of dace. I'm not exactly sure if it's there. I've seen about 3 fish go by, and I don't know that I've seen the specific species I'm looking for, but we'll see what happens. So with me right now, I just have jars, and then I'm going to catch the fish, euthanize it, put it in the jar, go home, then we'll go through the preserving process. So I will see you once I have caught the fish. So I was watching over this little bend here for a while because it's a fairly deep part. And even though it's not frozen, I thought that maybe fish would move here. I mean, it looks like a really good spot, but I watched over it for like 5 minutes and didn't see a single fish. However, I do see something interesting. So I'm gonna try and, ow. Okay, I fell. I'm good. It's great. We're good. This is a good idea. Just don't drop the phone and everything is fine. All right. Anyways, rip this frog. Guess he did not make it through the winter. I also want to show what impatience does to a person. This entire thing here from where the fall comes down was covered in ice. I actually used my net and my waders to break the ice and throw it out piece by piece onto the side here so that this spot would be open. If I waited like a month, 2 months, this ice would be gone. There'd be no snow, and this would be a very, very easy process. But I'm impatient. So this is what we ended up with. Fish successfully caught. I believe it's an eastern black-nosed dace. It's been euthanized. I've got it in the jar, but my feet are freezing and my hands even more so. So I'm gonna make my way back to a place to do this rather than doing out in the middle of the stream like I had originally planned. I'm actually almost out. My feet either have gone numb or are just warm now that they're not in the waders because they feel great. My hands, on the other hand, feel like I just dipped them in ice cold water over and over again for 2 hours, which is, I suppose, exactly what I did. All right, so we've got our specimen euthanized in the jar. Gonna count that as washing. So it's formaldehyde time. So first things first, you gotta take the formaldehyde. Warning, do not fuck with formaldehyde. If you don't know what you're doing with formaldehyde, don't use formaldehyde. It can be potent and a carcinogen, but just gotta be careful. We got window open, fan going, masks on, so we're good here. So you're gonna wanna fill what you're preserving with formaldehyde. This is temporary. The final solution is actually isopropyl alcohol, which is not toxic really to humans. It's just a high percentage alcohol. I'm gonna take this. This is just what will help the fish be preserved. And then one extra step that I like to take that's not necessarily necessary, but is particularly helpful in the process of preserving. If you just put a fish in formalin, what's going to happen is the outside of the fish is going to be preserved really well, but the insides are going to stay, are going to sort of fall apart. So I like to take just a little bit of formaldehyde and inject it into the coelom, which is the body cavity of the fish. And by just doing that, we make the fish look a little plumper, a little fuller, and we also make sure that the insides stay preserved as well as the outside. So now it's done. We can go ahead and drop the fish in here, and he will stay in the formaldehyde solution, airtight, for 1 month. And once that month is over, we will take him out, clean him, and then put him into the final isopropyl alcohol solution. See you in 1 month. Okay, so it has been exactly 1 month. My alarm just went off, which means it's time for the next step in the process. But first, I want to make something clear because I can already see the comments talking about it. The formaldehyde that we preserved this fish in for 30 days is not necessarily a required step, but I am going to explain why I think it's a good step most of the time, but you can make that decision for you. So let's look at the fish that we preserved, okay? It was in formaldehyde for an entire month, 30 days, and it looks nearly exactly like it did when it was caught. I mean, there is no differences. I could look at this fish and think that maybe it had been caught yesterday. On the other hand, here is a fish that skipped the formaldehyde step. This fish has been in isopropyl alcohol, which is the next step in the process, for about 4 days. And already it is, you can see there's concavity on the body. The body is caving in. This is a banded killifish, and it no longer has those black bands on the side that it did when it was caught. So you can see that there is a diminishment in quality between the two. So if you are looking for just to preserve a fish, just to have it for a long period of time, yes, you can immediately put the fish into isopropyl alcohol, and that will give you a non-toxic, much easier, much simpler solution to preserving a fish. However, if it is a specimen and you intend to do any sort of more meristics, morphometrics, anything on this fish that requires it to be in a state that it would have been in when it was caught, then the formaldehyde is a necessary step, because although yes, they are both preserved, they have not turned into bone, there is a clear distinction between these two fish. So let's get on to the next step. Okay. So I now have my mask and my gloves on because we are working with the formaldehyde in this jar. So if you intend to reuse your formaldehyde, which is perfectly fine, you can clean and reuse your formaldehyde. You'll see it's not particularly dirty. You can use a coffee filter. So a coffee filter and a funnel into the container of formaldehyde and pour it through that. And that will give you basically clean formaldehyde. You can reuse that a couple times before you need to get new ones. I personally don't reuse formaldehyde, but that is just a personal decision and not really based on, any kind of negativity to that process. So for me, I'm going to dispose of the formaldehyde in a safe way, and then we're going to wash the fish and add isopropyl alcohol as the final solution. Okay, so the fish is now, formaldehyde has been removed, and I've washed it out a couple times with water just to make sure to get rid of all the extra residue. All that's left to do now is to take the isopropyl alcohol, which looks like this guy, pour it in the amount that is necessary, seal it up, and you've got yourself a permanent preserved fish specimen.